Thank you so much, Philip, for that particular introduction. I really appreciate it. Well, today on the show, we'll be looking at the feud between the chairman of the APC. I'm talking about Tony Okocha and the executive governor of Rivers State, Mr. Siminalayi Fubara. Well, it's your program TMI coming to you live from the Lagos Network studios, and of course we'll be looking at the implication of such statement, calling the governor all sorts of unprintable names, and of course the likelihood that he may use his influence as the chairman of the party, I'm talking about the All Progressive Party, to influence the 27 lawmakers to carry out an impeachment process if the governor, as it were, refuses to honorably tender his resignation letter. Well, I'm being joined by Mr. Matthew Oluko, who is a political affairs analyst, who will be giving us more perspective to this. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, let's look at first the issue of the outcome of the Apex Court confirming the reinstatement of the 27 lawmakers. What's your thought on that, first of all?
I think the first thing is, in Nigeria, the Supreme Court is the highest arbiter when it comes to adjudication of cases. Once they give verdict, of course, is the final. There is no any other appeal, except otherwise, Supreme Court deem it fit to review their own judgment, which is not too often. And once they are giving judgment, if you are not satisfied, you can only appeal to God. So the way it stands, that judgment is sacrosanct, as far as Nigeria is concerned.
Thank you. Now, let's look at this issue. The governor, since he came into office, has barely had time to focus on governance. It's either one case with his predecessor or the other. Now it's about him and the APC chairman in the person of Mr. Tony Okocha. Throughout the media, I've seen so much back and forth, especially from this man. He has called the governor all sort of unprintable names, accused him of running the state aground, and even saying that the invitation is sent through the office of the secretary without having his signatory attached to that letter was a Greek gift. What's your thought on that?
I think the point here is, if they are not satisfied with the manner the letter came, I mean the invitation of the 27 lawmakers,
yes,
being led by Martin Amaewhule, I think the right thing to do is let the governor send another invitation. If they feel they will not honor it because the governor did not append his signature. So it's not a big deal. Let the governor send another one.
But is it statutory that a governor who is sending an invitation letter to the lawmakers through the office of the secretary to the state must have his signature attached to it? Is it mandatory by law?
There is nothing like mandatory. It's what the lawmaker choose to do. It's the way they should choose to act. Don't forget that we already have a crisis in our hand in that state, and it's a very precarious situation because the way it stands, that state stands the risk of not having allocation from federal government anytime from now. If, of course, I know the authorities will be waiting to hear from the House of Assembly whether the executive is already complying with the judgment. So I think it's in that light that the governor actually have indicated interest to obey the court ruling. Not just indicated interest, the governor have even gone ahead to ask the local government chairman to vacate their respective offices. So to that extent, I think I've seen a governor who is ready to submit to the rule of law.
Yes, because I can attest to the fact that the governor is ready to submit to the rule of law, given the fact that, there has been several videos online that show that the governor actually accepted the verdict from the Apex Court and has also promised that he, as the governor of the state, will not tolerate any form of violence from anyone who is not satisfied with that. But what is your take as regards Tony Okocha's statement as alleged that the governor actually invited the lawmakers to his office to discuss the outcome of the verdict?
No, he was merely asking a question whether the invitation was to discuss the verdict. Of course, I don't think that's the intention of the governor because the verdicts have been given. Perhaps because the lawmakers have said within 48 hours you have to represent the 2025 budget and some other issues. And I think it's not out of place. It's not the first time you are seeing as an executive governor or even the president inviting the legislative arm of government to have a chat with them. So I don't think there's nothing wrong in doing that, except for the fact that we're already having a crisis in our hands in that state. That may explain the reason we are seeing lawmakers giving excuses or reason why they may not honor invitation. But I think the governor should send another invitation in the way and manner they prefer to accept.
In your thoughts, you said there's nothing wrong in a governor being the executive inviting the legislature to his office to have a discussion. But he accused the governor of pretending to be a saint, whereas it's a dangerous snake.
Those ones is expected of every politician. That is, the governor have not been tried and found wanting of anything. So
do you suspect any move? That's what I'm saying by that statement.
No, for all purposes and intent, it is understood that their intention is to find an excuse to impeach the governor. It's very clear. Because from the beginning, you start hearing different 48 hours ultimatum. Before the 48 hours ultimatum will expire, you hear another one. I think the first one started with the political appointment the governor made prior to that judgment that has to do with the commissioners, that the governor should go back and present another set of commissioner designate for screening. I think they equally gave the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission a 48 hours ultimatum, the chairman also, to appear before it. So we have seen series of 48 hours ultimatum in what looked like setting a trap for the governor to set the stage for impeachment process. But however, the governor have indicated interest that he want to obey the court order. Not just indicated interest, we have seen his action geared towards obeying the court order. And don't forget that the governor needed to receive the certified true copy of the judgment before taking action. I think that is what he received before he now sent a letter to the legislative arm for that meeting.
Okay, before we delve deeper into other issues, there's this analogy someone painted that if you take me to court, there is no way I'm going to be at peace with you. Whether I will come back to form a realliance or not, there is no way I'm going to form that kind of peaceful coexistence with you. What is your take as regards this, considering the fact that he actually went to court with 27 lawmakers? Do you actually see any possibility of the 27 lawmakers working with the governor peacefully?
That is the person's opinion. The person that made the analogy, because in politics there is no permanent friend, there is no permanent enemy. And this time around in Rivers State, they are looking at what is the overriding interest. I think the overriding interest should be the interest of the state, because we are looking at a situation where the people may not really get what they need to use to develop the state in terms of infrastructure, healthcare, resources from federal government, from federation account. So if that is threatened, and the governor have decided that yes, I must abide by the rulings to have access to fund for the people, welfare and all that, because the whole essence of governance is the welfare of the people and their security. And if that is threatened, the whole essence of governor have been defeated. So the governor is honorable enough to have said, I'm going to abide by the ruling, and we are seeing his action geared towards that. So for me, I don't think the issue of taking someone to court and maybe being perpetual enemy will play out in this regard.
Okay, now let's look at other allegations. Mr. Okocha also said, aside from accusing the governor of running the state aground, he accused the governor of disrespecting Mr. President, especially looking at it from the angle of implementing the 8-point agenda that the president proposed between him and his predecessor, Wike, at the State House. What is your thought on that?
That is his own belief, and that is the way he chooses to understand what transpired. As far as I'm concerned, it is understandable that we have a Rivers State government, we have federal government. And if you needed to resolve any issue that borders on maybe between the legislative arm and executive arm, I think the best place to go is court. I'm not saying in some cases that political solution is not good, but if you have a situation where almost all the 8-point resolution is against the governor, I don't think the governor will be comfortable carrying it to the letter. But we are seeing a governor who is humble, who is not ready to even throw the state into coerce, and I think it's expected of a leader. But however, I think all the parties, for the interest of peace and sanctity of life, should come together and address all this. Because if you look at the state currently, if there is an atmosphere of rancor, disagreement, fighting, ultimately the state will suffer it. And when you are talking about the state, you are talking about the citizens of the state. So for me, I think it is better. Hence, the governor has said, I'm abiding by all the judgment, the details of the judgment of Supreme Court. Then I think the House members should as well give the governor a good atmosphere to carry out the judgment.
Now let's look at the issue concerning if the governor right about now refuses to resign. Do you think that there's any likelihood that Okocha might use his influence as the party chairman in that state to influence the 27 lawmakers to carry out an impeachment proceeding against the governor?
It's clear he has made that threat, and it's very clear that he is working in tandem with the House of Assembly, who are, of course, we understand they are close associates. Though it's not clear whether which party they belong, because this is a case pending before Supreme Court as well, challenging the defection of the 27 lawmakers. Because don't forget that even while that judgment was given by Supreme Court did say that they are not aware that the 27 lawmakers have defected from PDP to any other political party. I think that is perhaps because the issue before the court that they gave judgment on didn't border on defection. But I'm equally aware that there is another case before that Supreme Court that is challenging the issue of defection, and I understand that perhaps the Supreme Court have reserved judgment for that case. But holistically speaking, I think the APC chairman have what it takes to influence the 27 lawmakers in taking a particular decision, especially when it comes to the issue of impeachment.
How do you mean?
Because almost at the instance of the judgment of Supreme Court, we are seeing series of 48 hours ultimatum, and we are likely going to see more. So if you look at the ultimatum they are giving, you look as if it is a trap that's setting for the governor, that once you fail in any of them, certainly it will set stage for impeachment.
So what's your take on as regards the governor's stand in this matter? Because just as you said, a trap has been set. So is it likely that the governor in his wisdom might walk into that trap unknowingly?
Even if no one is perfect anyway, there are so many things that could amount to impeachment offense, maybe misconduct and all that. But the process of impeachment is cumbersome. It's stringent. It's not an event, it's a process that spans up to 3-4 months. Because in the first instance, you have the lawmakers to raise impeachment notice based on some identified misconduct. And that, after that, I think within 7 days, they will write, if they have gotten maybe House members, up to 1/3 of the House members signing it, they will write the governor. With or without the governor response, they will come back to write the chief judge of the state to raise a panel to investigate it, and that will take about 3 months for the investigation. And if after investigation, the panel that investigated, I think about seven members panel, if after investigation they come back to say the governor, the allegation is not true, it ends there. But if they confirm it, I think it takes about 2 or 3 processes, the governor will be removed.
Now, let's look at how the people, the states will fare in all of this. Because with all these back and forth, the governor may likely not be able to focus, especially when it comes to governance. Like you said, he would also be careful so as not to fall into the trap of being impeached. Now, what do you see as the welfare of the state? What do you see in terms of the future of the state, considering the fact that all this the governor has been doing is fighting one battle or the other?
Life itself is not rosy. I think the challenge will even make him stronger, because when you are faced with challenge, it brings out the best in you. I think that is the situation the governor is currently facing. But for me, I think he should, as long as he's trying to manage the situation to make sure he implements the judgment of Supreme Court, he should ensure that he's careful not to commit impeachable offense. because I think that's the excuse the lawmakers are looking for.
Now, he went for that meeting at the State House in Abuja with the fact that he wanted to respect the president, at least the office of the president. Is it duty bound to implement all of those proposals that the president gave? Is it duty bound?
The proposal that came after that meeting didn't have force of the law. It was just a political solution they were looking for. And it is not, you cannot hold anybody responsible for flouting it. But I think the part of the consequence is what we are seeing, because otherwise, if all issues were resolved, perhaps all the matters in court would have been withdrawn. Maybe we wouldn't get to this level where we are seeing a Supreme Court making pronouncements.
Okay, let's go for a short break now, and when we return, we will take the discussion to the front line. Please do stay with us. Thank you so much for staying with us. It's still your program, TMI, and we've been discussing the feud going on between the executive governor of the state, Siminalayi Fubara, and the APC state chairman in the person of Mr. Okocha. And of course, I have my guest joining me here in the person of Mr. Matthew Oloko, who has been giving us the various perspective as regards this. Now we'll be looking at issues that has to do with security of the state. Do you think that militancy, as we have it in the Niger Delta, can become a stumbling block to pave way for an impeachment of the governor if the other areas I mean, is not possible for the governor to walk in as a bait? Do you think they could use insurgency in the case of militancy as a way of getting him out?
But I understand that there's already a threat by a militant group that came out the other day. They go by the name of Niger Delta Rescue Movement, threatening that if Rivers State allocation is delayed, that they will deny federal government of revenue. But I don't think we should get up to that level, because if you look at the environmental impact it will cause the environment, if you look at the monumental ways of life that may come with it, I don't think it's a path we want to follow. Because I remember under the administration of Yaradua, when the issue of militancy was very high in Niger Delta, it got a point when federal government, through the Air Force, was bombing militants. I think Baramatu was the hardest hit then. It was a monumental waste of lives and property. And I don't think it's anything anybody will encourage. But if you look at currently, Ogun is perhaps the most polluted place in the whole world.
Really?
Yes. And it will take a good number of years with some billions of dollars to clean up Ogoni. I'm bringing this angle because if you bring in militancy, if there is sabotaging of critical infrastructures and you have oil spillage, the environment will suffer. Aquatic life will go, environment will be destroyed, family activities will be destroyed. Ultimately, it will affect mankind. So I think the government, though the police are come out clearly to say that they have the capacity to deal with it, and I believe and I pray it should be dealt with accordingly in order to save the environment and save people who live in that environment. Because for me, nobody wants a situation where you are seeing people running away from their ancestral homes perhaps because of militancy and all that. So I think the federal government, not the federal government anyway, I think the executive and the legislature in that state should come together and find the middle ground to resolve this.
Now, we are not here endorsing the act of militancy, but don't you think that oil spillage has been one of the major problems of the people of the Niger Delta, considering the fact that farming and aquatic life has always been their way of survival? And now the Ogoni land precisely has been desolate as a result of these activities, which, according to experts, they say it may take up to 50 years before that land can recover to its original state. Do you think the governor is doing anything as regards that before militancy starts erupting again?
When it comes to the cleanup of Ogoni, it's not even the hand of the state government. I understand that the oil company operating in that environment is a major stakeholder. Federal government is a major stakeholder. So every of the agencies of the government will bring their counterpart funding. Under the last administration, the president, Muhammad Buhari, made conscious efforts to start the process. But unfortunately, it turned out that after 8 years, nothing or no much was done. But I understand that this current government is interested in oil exploration in that state. But I think the first thing they should do is the cleanup of Ogoni before talking about oil exploration. But talking about the governor's effort, I understand that the last meeting they had with respect to resuming oil exploration in that state, the governor was in attendance at Asu Rock. Even the Minister of SCT was there. But ultimately, I think what the people need is the safety of the environment before oil exploration.
Talking about safe water, potable water, because the people too would also have issues with that. So what's your take on that?
It's a challenge, and I think it's part of effort of the state government, because when it comes to issue of potable water, healthcare, all these are normal social amenities that the government should provide. But in such environment, it is unlikely that I have natural clean water because of pollution. But I think there should be some mechanism in place to treat the water to make it drinkable.
Now, do you think that the governor in itself is likely to have a discussion? We're going back again now to the verdict. Do you think that the governor is likely going to have the discussion of the verdict from the apex court as a basis for calling that meeting?
The point is, there is nothing you can discuss about the judgment. The judgment, like I said, is sacrosanct, because in Nigeria, the Supreme Court is the highest arbiter when it comes to adjudication of cases. So once they give judgment, it becomes binding. And I think it's in that light that the governor has said, yes, I will implement the judgment. But I think the mode of implementation is what may have made him to invite his legislative arm of government, perhaps because they want to represent the 2025 budget. He will want to work out the modality on how to present it, and he have even made it clear in his letter to the legislators that he want to provide a place for their sitting. Don't forget that in the wake of this crisis, their legislative arm in that state was burned down. So I think the governor have good intention.
Now, is the governor under, any form of statutory law to sue Mr. Okocha for such kind of malicious statement, considering the fact that he's accusing the governor of running the state aground?
It is up to the governor to know whether he wants to institute any legal action against anybody. But the point is, calling on somebody to resign in itself, I don't think is criminal, because except otherwise, there are some other things attached to it, maybe the unprintable names. But it's up to the governor to take decision what he wants to do. He's
just a state chairman. So on what basis will he be calling the governor to resign?
Anybody can ask anybody to resign.
Do you think that it's a subtle means of inducing the lawmakers to push?
It's not even about inducing the lawmakers. The lawmakers are in tandem, working in tandem with that man. So if the governor, that is why the governor must tread cautiously in order not to fall into the hands of those that want to remove him. Because definitely, when we started hearing 48 hours ultimatum almost every day, we know that it is setting stage for his impeachment.
So talking about the rule of law, we've seen several times where especially governors decide to want to put or present appropriation bill to the legislature and having just a few members, seated there to be able to pass such laws. What do you think is a precedent that is being set as regards this?
There's nothing like precedence here, because the point is, we saw a similar thing in Edo State the other time. But the other thing is that the case of Edo State did not get to the Supreme Court, or even if it got to the Supreme Court did not make such pronouncements. So in as much as the Supreme Court did not make such pronouncements, the lawmakers, whether they're in the minority, could have been piloting the affair of the legislative arm of government. But hence the Supreme Court have made judgment. There's nothing anybody can do about it, because the judgment of the Supreme Court itself in Nigeria is seen as law. So I think it's sacrosanct, and the governor is honorable to say I want to abide by it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matthew Oluku, political affairs analyst, for coming on the show. We really appreciate your time as always.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's our offering for you this morning. Thank you so much for watching.